cutie pies, I hope everyone who is watching this video is doing absolutely great, and I welcome you all to solve top 30 questions from the chapter Organisms and Population. So this is a chapter from your 12th grade, and you know 12th grade chapters are really important, each and every one of them, because it gives you almost around 40 to 45 questions. So can you miss it? No. What about 11th? Can you skip it? No. Why? Because it gives you rest 15 to 20 questions. But the first priority is always given to 12, so all the chapters that I am going to discuss here with you is really important. So whenever I show you a question, pause the video, try to solve it out by yourself and then check your answers with me. That should be our policy, not my policy, it should be our policy. Okay, chalo, let's start doing the questions. Question number 1 says, generally bears avoid winter by undergoing. Okay, so what does bear undergo during winters? Are they very active? Okay, do they run around, pick up the fishes and eat them? What do they do? What do they actually do? Basically, they get into a phase which is known as hibernation, my dear children. Always remember, at colder places, all the animals are going to undergo hibernation. Okay, at hotter places, it will be estivation. Okay, at hotter places, it will be estivation. At colder places, it will be hibernation. So, bears basically, they come into this particular phase because in this particular phase, the metabolic rate, heart rate, everything becomes very slow, and they can survive like that because they want to store a lot of energy. They want to stay energetic after this particular period. Okay, after this particular period, they will go on hunting and do all their things. But during hibernation, they are just there resting. So, everyone needs a rest, right? So, they are also taking the rest, and this is known as hibernation. Okay, so winter for hibernation. If it was hotter, then it was estivation. Okay, now choose the incorrect statement with reference to kangaroo rat. It's a very famous thing. Okay, so kangaroo rat is famous because it is staying in a desert area. Now in desert area, what is something that you do not get? Water. So kangaroo rat is someone who tries a lot to save how much amount of water it can. So does it eliminate dilute urine? What do you mean by dilute? Dilute is when you are adding water. Okay, when there is too much amount of water content, you call it dilute, or basically when there is so less amount of water content, you call it concentrated. So do you think it will eliminate dilute urine? It will, release urine in the form of diluted form with too much water? No, this is actually incorrect. The first statement itself is incorrect. Let's see the other statement. Found in North American desert, this is correct. Meets its water requirement through internal fat oxidation. When it does internal fat oxidation, my dear children, as a byproduct, it gets water. That is how it matches its water requirement. Now use minimal water to remove excretory products. Okay, yes, it does not allow too much water to get lost when it is removing its excretory products as well. Okay, so with 2 number, very less water is there. So yes, it eliminates dilute urine. That is the only point that is entirely wrong over here. Cool. The next question. Average natality rate in our village is 25. Okay, natality rate means the rate of people who are being born. Okay, that is what you call by natality rate. So that is 25, and average mortality rate, that is death rate, is basically 24. Birth rate is 25, death rate is what? 24, my dear children. Immigration is 2. Immigration as in 2 people are coming in. Okay, emigration as in they are going out. E for exit. Okay, they are going out. How many people are going out? 3. And what is the net increase in population? That is what you have to find out. So there is a equation like this. Net increase in population is equals to natality plus immigration. That is how many organisms can be increased. That is birth rate plus the amount of immigration minus mortality plus emigration. So let's see, natality is how much, my dear children? Natality is 25, let's replace. Okay, 25 plus immigration is how much? 2. Let's put it into bracket. Minus, what do you get? Mortality. Mortality is how much? Mortality rate is 24. ठीक है, 24 plus emigration is what? 3. So how do you get? What do you get? Sorry, not how do you get? It's 27 minus 27. What is 27 minus 27, my dear children? 0. Anda. So this becomes the answer. The net increase in population is 0. So how many people are getting born, or what all people are getting moved in? And the same amount people are dying also, and they are moving out also. So the net increase in the population growth is what? 0. Anda. Cool? Chalo. Next, the animals which are active during daytime, what do you call them? The ones that are active during daytime. Other terms you might have not even heard of it. Okay, aurora, there is a song in Instagram. Okay, so basically auroral is, I just randomly picked one. Okay, auroral is during the early morning hours. If you're active, that is what you mean by auroral. Okay, so organisms which are diurnal are the ones which are active during days. We are active during days, we are active during night, everything, but basically organisms, some birds will be there, they will be active just during the day. They are known as diurnal birds. Cool? And some organisms are active basically during dusk and dawn, some are active during evening. Those are the other categories that we have over here, but we are asked about the ones that are active during day and they are known as diurnal. Cool? Chalo, it's a straight question. There is no much explanation over here. You have to remember the terms as such. Okay. Now, which of the following statement is incorrect related to biomes? Okay. High temperature and minimum rainfall help to form grasslands. You have to see incorrect. High temperature and minimum rainfall help to form grassland. That is correct. Okay, there will be high temperature and there will be very low to minimum, medium amount of rainfall, which would help in the formation of grassland. That is correct. Variation in temperature and mean precipitation accounts for major biomes. Obviously, the temperature and the precipitation rate, that is the rate of rainfall and things like that, that will be responsible for deciding what type of biome will be there, whether it will be tundra or grassland or temperate or tropical, whatever. Okay, so they are responsible for all the major biomes. So this is also correct. Now, low temperature and less rainfall is characteristic of tundra biomes. Okay, low temperature as in it will be very cold, and less rainfall is a characteristic of tundra biomes. That is also correct. In tundra you have what's a very colder environment. Now, more rainfall and low temperature is characteristics of desert. More rainfall in desert you don't have water, so how can you expect more rainfall there? So this is wrong. This is what? Wrong. You were asked to find what the incorrect thing related to biome. So this is the wrong one. Okay. So put D as the wrong option and here you get 1 mark. Okay. Chalo. Next question. This is an easy question. No, from this chapter I found easy question only. Just that you should be having little basic understanding of the chapter and little common sense as well. Okay. Now, Cuscuta is an example of. Cuscuta is basically what? Cuscuta is a plant parasite, my dear children. It is a plant parasite. Have you seen Cuscuta? It's yellow in color and they just move around throughout the body of the plants. Okay, they just stay there. Why? Because they do not have chlorophyll. Remember the statement, they do not have chlorophyll. And if chlorophyll is not there, can they absorb sunlight and prepare their own food? No. So they are like, I'll depend on other plants who are already making their food. I'll take their food, their water, everything which is there. I'm not going to prepare anything by myself, which is why I am the parasite. So Cuscuta or Amarbel or Dodar, everything, whatever you say it, okay, it's a parasite and it is not there inside the plant. It is not there completely inside the plant. It is an external parasite. Okay, it stays there outside the plant, which is why I call it ectoparasite. Ecto as in it's present outside. Okay, it shows ectoparasitism, but I want to tell you one thing. Basically what happens, suppose this is Cuscuta. Okay, this is Cuscuta. And this is the normal plant that we are having. What the Cuscuta does is, it forms branch-like structures like this and get into the plant's body and get into the xylem and phloem which is there and take the nutrients from this. What do you call this structure? This is known as Hostoria. Okay, what do you call this structure? This is known as Hostoria. So it's an external parasite or ectoparasite, but it's still taking things from inside. You should be knowing that, just for your understanding. Okay, you call it Amarbel, you call it Dodar, everything. Chalo. Next question. Maintenance of constant internal environment is called. Very simple question. Constant internal environment, homeostasis. Okay, homeostasis. If you're talking about water, it would have been osmoregulation. If you're talking about metastasis, has nothing to do over here. Metastasis means the cells, sometimes, usually in our body when the cells divide, they just stay there in that particular region. But there are certain cells which has the power to move around throughout our body and just spread there. This is the characteristic of cancerous cell, and this character is known as metastasis. Okay, it is known as metastasis. It has nothing to do with this. Thermoregulation is basically temperature regulation. So homeostasis is what? Internal constant environment which is maintained. This particular process is known as homeostasis. Cool? Chalo. Next question. Identify the correct statement from the following. Cuscuta is a chlorophyllous endoparasite. First thing, it does not have chlorophyll. So that is wrong. Endoparasite, again, that is also wrong. What you have to find? You have to find the correct. So please underline the correct word. Okay, otherwise you will go find the incorrect things. Now, human liver fluke needs only one host to complete its life cycle. It is again wrong. Human liver fluke, it needs two hosts. There is snail and there is human being. It needs two hosts, my dear children. So this is wrong. Now, the life cycle of endoparasite is more complex due to their extreme specialization. So, this is a direct line from your NCERT. So, they have said the organism which stays in your body and takes away everything, basically their life cycle is considered to be more complex. Why? Because they have extreme specialization. They will be having extra coating on their body so that it prevents the action of the enzymes and things like that. They will have this and that. They won't be having a lot of things that is also there, okay, but their body is kind of specialized in their own way. They have extreme specialization, and this is because they have a different type of life cycle which is very, very complex. So, this is the correct statement that we can find over here. Let's see the fourth one. During the course of evolution, the host bird's eggs have evolved to resemble the eggs of the parasitic birds. Host bird's egg, for example, if you have crow and crow are laying their egg. So, this leg, okay, it's their nest. But over here, a cuckoo comes and lays egg also. But during the course of time, this cuckoo, which is what, my dear children, this cuckoo is the parasite. It is now evolved in a way that its egg starts to resemble like the host egg. So, in this statement, ulta thing is given. During the course of evolution, the host bird egg have evolved to resemble like the egg of the parasite. No, the egg of the parasite has started to resemble like the host bird. Please understand the difference. So, this is a wrong statement, straight wrong statement. You have to find the correct one. So, I will say only 3 is the correct answer. If you are not aware, if you did not read this question carefully, you are going to lose up your marks over here. Please understand that. Okay. So, please don't lose your marks. Please be just careful. Okay. Chalo. Next question. Relate the column 1 with column 2 with regard to predatory behavior. Okay, what type of behavior does it have? Calotropis. Now, calotropis, you might have seen the white colored flower. Okay, it does not look like flower, it looks like bud. It is there all around. Okay, if you just move around here and there, you will be finding this calotropis. Well, calotropis is really famous because it has lot of cardiac glycosides which is going to affect the organisms which are going to come and feed on it. Okay, so they are going to release some toxic thing, that is cardiac glycosides, my dear children. So, A for 4. A for 4, I just have 2 options, so I will cancel the other 2 options over here. Now, if you know frogs, there are certain frogs which are cryptically colored. They are colored in a way that they are not identified by the predator. So, I will say frog with 3, D with 3. So, in the options like over here, we have D with 2 and D with 3. So, I see this option is the most preferred one. But let us see other things. B is it with 1. Pisaster. Pisaster is a starfish. Okay. Pisaster is a starfish. Well, when Pisaster was basically removed, okay, what happened? The organisms which it used to eat, it is now flourishing because there is no one to hunt on it, right? So, when it got flourished, what happened? All the invertebrate species which were there, their amount became very decreasing. This Pisaster was eating on something, and this something, when it was eaten up, what happened? The amount of invertebrates were okay. But when Pisaster itself is not there, this guy ruled the world and they killed all the invertebrates over there. So, the amount of invertebrates which was there, it was going really, really less. So, that is a thing between Pisaster and the invertebrates. So, B with 1. B with 1 is correct. What about Monarch? Monarch butterfly is there. Monarch butterfly, it's very distasteful, my dear children. Why is it distasteful? C with 3. So, this C with 2. So, this is the answer. But why is it distasteful? Because again, when it is in caterpillar stage, at this point of time, it feeds on something which have the toxic content. It does not affect itself, but it's there in its body, and it's highly distasteful for any predator which comes and eats this monarch butterfly. So, the predator will come and eat like, I don't like it now, I won't be eating it anymore. Okay. So, that is the thing. Defense mechanism. Okay. Now, small mammals and birds are rarely found in polar regions. The reason is that, my dear children, small mammals and birds in polar region as in cold region. In cold region, what should be the main thing? You should be warm. There should be warmth maintained. Now, if you are a small organism, okay, if you are a small organism, my dear children, in respect to your volume, if you see, the surface area is kind of more. There will be high surface area. Okay, there will be high surface area, and if there is high surface area, they are going to lose a lot of heat over there. And if they are going to lose a lot of heat over there, can they be warm, my dear children? No, they cannot be warm. So, it has to be maintained sure. Small mammals and birds cannot be found in polar regions. There will be bigger organism because their volume is big with respect to their surface area. So, it's for them it's okay. Okay, but over here the surface area is kind of big in respect to the volume. So they have a larger surface area related to the volume, which is why they cannot survive, and this is correct because they will be losing a lot of heat since there is more surface area. Okay, now they did tend to gain heat very fast. If that was the case, they would have probably lived there. They expend less energy, no, nothing. This is the answer. Okay, always remember small mammals. That is why you find polar bears and things like that, seal and everything there in the polar regions. You don't find small organisms. Why? Because small organisms have lesser volume, more surface area. If more surface area is there, more loss of heat will be there, so they won't be warm anymore. Okay, now next, identify the incorrect statement. Camp plants, okay, close their stomata during daytime. What do you mean by camp plants? The one that shows crustacean acid metabolism. This is a different type of photosynthesis, my dear children. Okay, so in desert plants, my dear children, desert plants are the one that show camp photosynthetic pathway. Okay, desert plants. Now you tell me, desert plants, they do not have water. Okay, they already do not have water. They do not want to lose lot of water. So what do? They close their stomata during the daytime. Because sun is there. If sun is there, it will make evaporation to happen, and there will be too much loss of water. So what does this plant do? They close the stomata during the daytime. They will open it during the night time. And why do they open it? They want the gases. They want carbon dioxide and everything for photosynthesis to happen. So in the daytime they have this thing, okay, sunlight and everything. At night time they open the stomata, they take in the carbon dioxide, they store it. In the daytime this carbon dioxide is being utilized in the presence of sunlight for the preparation of their food. Okay, that is how they work. So this is a correct statement. Now seals have a thick layer of fat to reduce body heat. Yes, they have a thick layer of fat, okay, to reduce the release of body heat. Basically it insulates them properly. Now lizards bask in the sun during winter. Yes, they are ectothermic. Okay, they do not have a constant body temperature. Instead they have to move around to have a proper temperature. So it's like that. Now tribes living in high altitude have the same RBC count as the people living in the plains. Do you think the people living in the high altitude will be having the same amount of RBC count? I hope you know that when you go high up the altitude, what happens? There will be less oxygen, my dear children. There will be less oxygen. And who is the one that carries oxygen? It is hemoglobin, which is found in what? RBC. So if they have less RBC, less oxygen, they won't be able to survive. What about more RBC? What about more RBC? If there is more RBC in them, with the limited amount of oxygen, it can go, whatever is there. Okay, the limited amount of oxygen which is there, they can be taken up by a lot of RBCs, and this is how they survive. If they do not have both these things, how will they survive? You get it? So tribes living in high altitude have the same RBC count as the people living in plains. This is entirely wrong. They will be having high amount of RBC than the people who are living in the plain area. Okay, so whatever amount of oxygen is there, that can be easily transported with the RBCs that they are having. Cool. So this is the answer, the incorrect statement. Now, going ahead to the next question. Population size keeps changing depending on different factors such as food availability, predation pressures, adverse weather, all of the above. What do you think is the answer? Obviously the population size will keep on changing. Depending on if the food is there, then only organism will be there, otherwise the organism won't be there. If predation pressure is way too much, organism will die, so they will move to different areas. Okay, and now adverse weather is there, there is high temperature and things like that, organism won't be able to live, so they will move to other area. So population size which is there, okay, it keeps on changing because of all these factors that is mentioned above. So I'll say D is the correct answer. This is a very simple question, came in 2021, can easily give you marks. So you see the power of practicing questions, my dear children. If you're not practicing, you do not know anything, right? So please practice very often. Now, which of the following features of plant is not helpful in adapting to desert life? Okay, in desert life our main focus should be that water should not be lost. So anything that opposes that will not be coming in this category. So I'll start with B option. Okay, presence of thick cuticle on the leaf surface. If there is thick cuticle, my dear children, it won't allow water loss. So cuticle is a layer which is found above the layer of epidermis, okay, and it does not allow water loss to happen. So this is something that will be helpful for desert plants. Leaves modified into spines. When the leaves are modified into spines, so basically you are lessening the surface area. Okay, if the leaf was like this, now you are making into spine, there will be less surface area, that means less loss of what? Water as well. Now, presence of sunken stomata. Obviously, if the stomata is deep inside, okay, it is sunken, obviously it won't be able to lose water really well. So these three things, if you see, Okay, if you understand these three things, you know that they are all helping to adapt in the desert. You are asked about which is not helpful. So even if you do not understand this option, you will be able to answer that this is the option. So absence of trichomes on leaf surface, my dear children. So listen to me. What are trichomes? They are hairs, the plant hairs that is there. What is the use of this? They trap air. Okay, they trap air. The trichomes which are there, the small hair which is there, it traps air. So basically when it traps air, it does not allow the loss of moisture over there. Okay, does not allow loss of water and things like that. There's the air being trapped over there, it is a constant environment which is being maintained over there. Okay, which is why there won't be loss of water. But if suppose trichomes is not there, that means that layer of air is not there. There is no proper moisture loss and things like that. So which is why this is the incorrect one. Okay. Chalo. Next question. In the following equation of Wurst, Pearl, logistic growth, the letter R denotes. What does this particular R denotes? dN by dt is basically the change in the population growth, right? And K is what? Carrying capacity. N is the population size that was already there. So basically, what does R denote? R is basically birth rate minus death rate. R is equals to birth rate minus death rate, which is also known as intrinsic rate of natural increase, my dear children. It is known as intrinsic rate of natural increase. So if the birth rate is way too much, I'll say R is more. If the birth rate is less, I'll say R is less. Okay. So this is the thing. Okay. Next thing. So all these equations that you see, the equations have to be clear. All these terms which are there over here, you should be knowing that. K for carrying capacity, that means the capacity, how much far the population can grow, how much, for example, this is an area over here, how much population can it actually attain, tackle. Okay, what is the carrying capacity? Not beyond that it won't be going, that only that much amount of resources will be there, okay, which would be allowing to carry this much amount of population. That is what you mean by carrying capacity. Okay, now the shape of the pyramids reflects the growth status of population. Identify the type of age pyramid represented below for human population. So over here you have pre-reproductive age groups, then post-reproductive, then pre-reproductive, reproductive, and then post-reproductive. So if pre-reproductive is less, that means organisms which are going to reproduce in future, if their amount is less, do you think the population would be growing, my dear children? Do you think the population would be growing? No. Over here reproductive age groups are this much, that means they are still reproducing, that's fine. But what about the future? These organisms, if they are less in amount, will it allow increase in the population growth? No. So I will say this type of population which is there, whether there is a lower narrow area, okay, I will be saying that this is declining population. Why? Because the organism in the pre-reproductive age group is really in the pre-reproductive age group, they are what? Really less. Cool. So it will be declining. Now next thing, in amphibians and reptiles, the body temperature changes corresponding to external temperature. The organism which show this kind of response is termed as. Okay, so basically we organisms, when we move around, for example, I am coming over here, there is 24 degrees Celsius over here maintained in this particular studio. Okay. In this particular point of time, does my body also change its temperature, my dear children? No. My body anyhow has to maintain a constant temperature. Now I've moved to some area where it's too much hot. Will my body's temperature change to something that is cold? No. My body will still have a constant temperature. Okay, my body will still have a constant temperature. Okay, so I will call myself as homeothermic organism. Okay, I will call myself as homeothermic organism or warm-blooded organism, or I will call myself as a regulator. Okay, I am called myself as what? Regulator. But there are organisms who cannot regulate their body temperature. So whatever is outside, their body temperature is going to change accordingly. They are going to change their temperature according to the external temperature. So these organisms are known as conformers. What do you call them? Conformers. Okay, regulators are the one who can regulate. Okay, who can regulate their body temperature. Just a second, okay, I think I am getting confused. Okay, I was correct, yeah. And partial regulators are the ones which are basically not able to entirely maintain a constant body temperature, but still, okay, some aspect of their body is being maintained by themselves. Okay, so conformers are the ones that do not maintain a proper body temperature as such, and they are also known as what do you call them? Homeothermic and poikilotherms. Okay, what do you call them? Poikilotherms, and they are cold-blooded organisms. They are what? Cold-blooded organisms, and they are known as poikilotherms. We are homeotherms, okay, or warm-blooded organism. Now, what do you mean by thermophiles? Thermophiles are the ones that are able to adapt even at high temperatures. It has nothing to do with the question, but still they have kept it. So, in amphibians and reptiles, the body temperature changes according to the external temperature. That means they are conformers. Okay. Yes. Regulators as in someone who can regulate. You can remember like that, like us. Now, read the statement and choose, not close the correct answer. It's choose the correct answer. Okay. Now, the monarch butterfly feeds on poisonous weeds during its caterpillar stage. I told you it feeds on one very bad poisonous weed, okay, and it is done during the caterpillar stage. Now, it helps the butterfly to become distasteful to its predator. That is also true. So, I will say statement 1 and statement 2. Both of them, they are equally correct, my dear children. So, statement 1 is correct and statement 2 is also correct. So, and it's the correct explanation as well, right? Statement 1 is true and statement 2 is the correct explanation of statement 1. Okay, because they are feeding on this, that is the reason that they become highly distasteful for the predators who are coming on feeding on them. Chalo. Next thing. From the given options, identify the correct combination of population interactions that correspond to the symbols given here. Okay. Plus, that means both the organisms which are there, they are having benefit from each other. So, I will say definitely say it's mutualism. So, I have these two options, I will cut these two options, okay. Now, in the case of minus, that means both the organisms which are interacting are going to face some trouble. They are not going to have some positive thing, they are going to face some trouble. So, in the case of parasitism and competition, I have two options, right. Parasitism is when one organism is benefited, other organism is harmed. So, it will be a plus minus relationship. Okay, one is harmed, the other one is benefited. But in the case of competition, if you see both of them, for example, me and Ashura ma'am are competing, basically we are doing dishum and things like that. Both of us will be injured. So, I will say competition is there. Okay, both of them would not have anything. So, basically you should not be fighting, which is why me and Ashura ma'am are really good friends. Okay, so yes, so competition is the thing. So, I will say anyway the second or third option is correct, but let us see last one. Plus and 0, what do you mean? One organism is getting benefited, other organism is not going to have any effect. Okay, one organism is getting benefited, other organism has no effect. For example, if I talk about cattle, egret and cattle. Okay, so for example, you might have seen that there are small insect sort of thing which is there on the cattles. Okay, when they move around, it will be like flying in the grass surface. So, what is the use? Basically, when the cattle moves around, it is going to pick up so many. Sorry. Cattle egret is there and then you have cattle. So, basically what happens is that cattle egret which is there, it will be feeding on the small insects present in the grass. I hope I think I called cattle egret as insects. No, they are going to feed on other smaller insects which are there on the grass. So, when cattle move, they will come and feed on it. Okay, so over here cattle egret is benefiting. What about the cattle? There is no effect. Okay, so I will say this is commensalism, my dear children. This is commensalism. Mutualism, competition, commensalism, this becomes your answer. Okay, cool, works. Chalo. Next question. World's per logistic growth is described by the equation dn by dt is equals to Rn k minus n by k, where R and k represent what? R, I already told you it is what? Intrinsic rate of natural increase, and K is what? Carrying capacity. K is how much that particular area or population can be carried. Okay, how much growth can happen with the limited resource that is there. So, it will be the carrying capacity and R will be intrinsic rate of natural increase. So, this becomes your answer. Cool? Chalo. Next. Psammophytes are growing in ore. So, Psammophytes are basically plants, my dear children. This is not given in your NCERT, but yes, it has come. So, 2017 question. Psammophytes are growing in ore, and it's basically in the desert area, the plants which are growing, you call them as Psammophytes. Okay, something extra, something unique. You have to remember, just keep it in your head. It might be not coming, okay, it might be not coming because it came in 2017 where the NCERT textbook was also kind of different. Okay, so we are following 2022 revised edition. So, you don't need to worry, but still. Okay, next one. A plant shows the following modifications. Okay, what are the modifications? Leaves covered with dense hair, Leaf surface area is shiny. Leaf blade remains rolled during the day. Adaptation of this plant is 2. So what is the use of doing this? So leaf are covered with dense hair. What do you call them? Trichomes, my dear children. And the leaf surface is shiny. Why do you need shiny surface? That is when the sun's light could be reflected back. It does not affect the plant, it can be reflected back. That is when the leaf surface is shiny. Okay. Now leaf blade remains rolled. The leaf itself, it becomes rolled during the daytime. What do you think is this adaptation for? To conserve water, to prevent excessive heat, to check transpiration, to absorb water. So I'll say conserve water, check transpiration. Basically this is the answer. Check the amount of transpiration, since this is more logical, even though it's the same thing, but yeah. So check transpiration as in the amount of water which is released in the form of water vapor. It should be checked. There should be a there should be a regulation in that. Okay. So if the leaves are covered with dense hair, my dear children, as I said, the air will be trapped over there. It won't allow lots of water transpiration to happen over there. If the leaf surface is shiny, the sunlight will be reflected back. Again, it is not going to make the leaf temperature hot, or basically does not allow to lose a lot of water. Now leaf blade, if remains rolled, obviously the stomata is not being seen. Do you think it can be helpful in transpiration? No, it does not allow transpiration to happen in a big level. So I'll say all these adaptations are to check what? Transpiration. This question is kind of confusing with the options that they have put, but always go with the terms which is given in your NCERT, which would be more popular. So it is check transpiration. Cool. Chalo. Next. MacArthur's vision of 5 closely related species of warblers living on the same tree were able to avoid competition and coexist by behavioral difference. This is an example of. So basically, MacArthur was studying and he found that warblers are there. There are 5 species, okay, 5 closely related species of warblers, and they are living on the same tree in different levels. Okay, so that says that they are not avoiding, they are not doing competition and things like that. How do you think that this was achieved? This is an example of what, my dear children? So I'll say this is an example of resource partitioning. They partition their resources. They know that, okay, the first species, I'll be feeding on this type of resource. The second species, I'll be feeding on this type of resource. Okay, the resource was there which was partitioned, my dear children. Okay, which is why all of them were staying on the same tree. Okay, if the resource was not partitioned between these organisms, they would have fought. Okay, they said, I will be in the lower area, I will be in the middle, I will be in the higher region, I will be in this area, this area. So that is what you mean by resource partitioning. Cool. So this is the reason they coexisted. Now, otherwise they would have been removed. Okay, they would have been died off, but they didn't. Now, interaction between cuckoo and crow is an example of, listen, crow is an organism that is laying its egg in its own nest, but cuckoo comes in and lays its egg over there, and what happens? After it lays its egg over there, the crow, which does not know that this particular one egg is from some other species, it is still nurturing it, giving it care and doing everything possible. So I'll say one organism is getting benefited, other organism is getting affected, because I am utilizing my energy. If I am a crow, I am utilizing my energy to nurture someone else's kid. Okay, that is not bad, but over here it is bad. Okay, that is bad over here. So which is why I'll say this is a this is what parasitism, not predation. This is parasitism. And what type of parasitism, my dear children? You call this as not broad parasitism, it is brood parasitism. Okay, this is known as brood parasitism. So 23rd question goes with C. Chalo. Next, some desert beetles can survive on metabolic water without ever drinking liquid water. Okay, so some desert beetles, so beetles are able to stay, they survive on metabolic water. What do you mean by metabolic water? That means any reaction happening in your body which is releasing water as a byproduct, it is surviving on that particular reaction. So without, they are not drinking enough liquid water. And how they are basically surviving? So this is because what's produced as water in the organism they eat. Okay, so the water they are getting is probably produced from the organism that they are eating? No. It is absorbed from the air along with the respiratory oxygen? No. It is a breakdown product of pyruvate inside the mitochondria along with carbon dioxide. My dear children, this is a metabolic reaction. What is this reaction? This is respiration, my dear children. In respiration, okay, when glucose is being oxidized into pyruvate, and then pyruvate is further broken down to carbon dioxide, it also gives rise to what? H2O along with ATP. Now this H2O is something that it relies on for surviving. This is the case of desert beetle. they are surviving on metabolic water, that is water released during metabolic reactions such like this. So it is released, okay, when the breakdown of product of pyruvate inside the mitochondria along with carbon dioxide, water is produced, okay. Water is a breakdown product of pyruvate. Now, is a breakdown product from glycolysis in the cytoplasm? From glycolysis in the cytoplasm? No, my dear children. Glycolysis means glucose to pyruvate. What about the rest of the reaction? You should be knowing that after this, when the pyruvate gets gets into the mitochondria, this happens in the cytoplasm and this is known as glycolysis. Okay, but later when this pyruvate gets into the mitochondria and converted into acetic acid and then basically have a huge lot of reactions over there. Okay, this will be known, so not acetic acid, is acetyl-CoA. The pyruvate gets into the mitochondria, converts into acetyl-CoA. This will undergo Krebs cycle, and then Krebs later on it will undergo some other cycle which is known as ETC cycle. At the end it will give CO2, H2O and ATP, but this happens in what? In the mitochondria. So you should be knowing that this particular reaction is not going to give you enough amount of water, but from here to here it will give you water, and it happens in the mitochondria. And what do you call this? Aerobic respiration. Okay, what do you call this? Aerobic respiration. So this becomes your answer. Cool. Next, Connell's field experiment on rocky sea coast of Scotland, where larger barnacle balanus dominates the intertidal area and removes the smaller barnacle thalamus. This happened due to what? So basically a larger barnacle came in, that is balanus, and it dominated the intertidal region and they removed the smaller ones which were already there. This happened due to why? Why did they actually remove? Predation, competition, parasitism, mutualism. Competition, my dear children. They were competing for the same resources, which is why one had to be removed. One had to be removed from their own area. Okay, this is a result of competition. So this is a very famous experiment being performed and you should be knowing the answer for this. Cool? Chalo, straight from NCERT. In which type of interaction both the interacting organisms do not live close together? So in predation, obviously they have to live close together, okay, and at least in the same area, not like very close. Okay, for example, tiger and deer, they will be in the same area because obviously this guy has to feed this guy. If they are in Antarctica and this one is in Africa, obviously they cannot feed on each other and they won't be able to survive. So predation, obviously you need organisms together. What about parasitism? Again, you need organisms together, okay, because they are going to feed on the other organism. Mutualism, obviously they are helping each other, so you needed them together. What about competition? Competition, you do not need them together. You want to go, basically they would not be able to survive, okay, they would not be able to survive if they are staying together, so they have to move away. So in which type of interaction both interacting organisms do not live close together? It will be competition. At the end result, they are not going to live close together, my dear children. They will be moving apart because there is a competition there for the resources and the place and everything. Cool? It's a very simple question. Again, it's a brain game. Okay, common sense. Chalo. 27th. A population is correctly defined as having which of the following characteristics? What do you mean by population? That is the question. Okay, how do you frame a sentence? What is a population? So I know population is a group of what? Same species. It's a group of individuals, all of which belong to a same species. Now I can add one more statement. Basically the same species are going to inhabit same geographical area. Okay, they are going to inhabit the same geographical area. So population is correctly defined as what? We always look for this. Individuals belonging to the same species, yes, but they also inhabit the same geographical area as well. So this is what you mean by a population. Okay, this is the population of Africa, as in the one who are there in just Africa. And population of what? Human beings. So all the human beings of the same species, they are all in the same species. They are in the same geographical area. Okay, that is what you mean by population. So I'll say A and B, both of them are correct. A and B, both of them are correct. Cool. Next, all the following interactions are mutualism except. All the following interactions are mutualism, as in both of them have to get benefited, okay, in mutualism. So association of algae and fungi in lichens. In the case of lichens, algae basically they can produce food, okay, the organic matter, okay. They might be photosynthetic and things like that, or chemosynthetic, either way. Okay, they are going to produce their food. What about fungi? Fungi has hyphae, and this hyphae is getting into the things, and they absorb more amount of nutrients. So the fungi is going to give nutrients, the algae is going to give food. That is how they work in lichen. So both of them are benefiting each other. What about association of fungi and roots of higher plants? Again, the fungi is going to provide what? All the nutrients. Since it has hyphae, it can move into the soil and take in all the nutrients, absorb the nutrients really well. What about the roots of the higher plants? The roots which are there, basically it is a part of the plant, and the plant produces food. So food will be given to the fungi, and the fungi will give nutrients. So that happens in mycorrhiza. Again, both of them are getting benefited. Plant and animal relation for pollination. So in the case of plant, okay, plant are relying on animals for what? The pollen grains to get dispersed. So when the organism comes and feeds on the plant for the nectar, plant is providing what? Nectar. Okay, and what is the animal doing? Animal comes and brushes over it such that it has the pollen grains, and now this pollen grains are being transported to other plants. So in that way, pollination is happening. So again, both of them are benefited. Association of cattle egret and grazing cattle. I told you, cattle egret is waiting for the cattle to move so that it can feed on the small insects which are there. Okay, small insects which are there. So obviously over here, cattle is not benefited, but the cattle egret is. So I'll say it is where one organism is benefited, other organism has no benefit. So I'll call this as commensalism. It is not harming, but it does not have any other benefit as well. So this is not mutualism, my dear children. So this is the exception that we are having over there. Cool? Chalo. Next, which one of the following refers to Allen's principle? Okay, so Allen had the full question if you want. Somehow. Okay. Allen's rule, yes, I was saying Allen's principle. So Allen's rule was there. So what is Allen's rule? Very simple, very straightforward, I'll tell you. Mammals from colder climates have shorter ears and limbs to minimize heat loss. So mammals from the colder climates, okay, the one that lives in the colder climates will be obviously having shorter ears and limbs. Why do you think they have shorter ears and limbs? So that, okay, such that there will be less surface area. Here you are not talking about volume and surface area and things like that. There is shorter ear. Now ear obviously don't have much volume. Okay, the surface area, if you see, okay, the surface area if you see, it will be really less. Okay, comparatively, if you compare with the volume and everything, the surface area will be really less, my dear children. So obviously they won't be losing a lot of heat. Again, limbs also, if it's smaller, that means less surface area. And if less surface area is there, my dear children, if less surface area is there, then they are not going to lose a lot of heat. So this is the answer. This is the Allen's rule. An organism can move from a stressful habitat to more hospitable area? No. If the stressful condition? No. Low atmospheric pressure? No. Nothing. It's for this only. Allen's rule is for temperature regulation and things like that, surface area and things like that. So mammals from colder climates have shorter ears and limbs to minimize heat loss. As simple as that. Okay. You might have seen them. If you see the pictures carefully, polar bear and everyone, they have short hairs, short ears. Okay. Now, the last question. The interaction between the organisms of one of the following pairs is an example of commensalism. Okay, one is benefited, another one has no effect. Cattle or sheep and the grass. So sheep and the grass. Sheep feeds on the grass, my dear children. So this is predation that is happening. So I won't say it is good for both, okay, not good for one and other, nothing for both, nothing for the other one, okay, it's not like that. Oof, I'm confusing you. Listen, sheep is going to eat the grass, so only one is getting benefited, other is getting harmed. What about wasp and fig tree? Over here, the wasp lays its egg inside the fig tree, okay, in the fig tree ovary, whereas fig tree is waiting for pollination to happen. Basically over there, both of them are benefited. I'll say it's mutualism. What about cuckoo and crow? They are again showing parasitism. I told you, cuckoo is going to act like this is the egg of the crow itself, and it's going to provide all the nourishment. It is going to take all the nourishment from the crow's side. So this is parasitism, and this is known as brood parasitism. What about orchid and mango tree? So the mango tree, it is in height, right? So orchid will be growing up here. Why? It is not going to harm the mango tree, but it just want to take enough amount of sunlight. It just want to have enough amount of sunlight, which is why it has it. Cool? So I'll say this is the answer. This is the example of commensalism. And with that, we have covered all the 30 questions of organism and population which have come from the previous years, okay, which is there in this whole book. So please practice all the questions, my dear children, and do let me know if you didn't understand anything. I am here to solve your doubts, okay, make your doubts go away. That is what I meant to say today. I don't know why there's a slip of tongue. So yes, that's all, and wishing you good luck. Bye bye, take care, and do not forget to subscribe to our channel.